sometimes I'd always say, I think this is too much. I think this is too much. Rang Noah that night, and I said, Noah, the scene tomorrow, I'm talking too much. This Boba doesn't talk this much. Look, I've got all these paragraphs here. I think we should get rid of it. John wants you to say all that dialogue, and he'll cut it out later.
Before I get started, I'd like to kindly ask that you hit the like button, and please subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.
Do or do not. There is no try.
Ladies and gentlemen, just last week, at the conclusion of the most god-awful episode of this season so far, Chapter 3, I recorded a review in which I compared that episode to The Last Jedi, a statement that I do stand by. And then just days later, I came across an interview where the actor who plays Boba Fett claimed that he expressed concerns about Boba Fett talking too much, and how he would prefer if they kept Boba Fett a bit more mysterious. This is very reminiscent of how Mark Hamill expressed concerns about how Luke Skywalker was portrayed in The Last Jedi. And during filming, both men brought their concerns to the powers that be, and they were told to just do what's in the script. So my question to all you is, what does this tell us? It tells me that just like real fans, the actors who are portraying these characters know more about Star Wars than the people who are producing these shows and movies. It clearly shows that the people who actually give a fuck are the ones who know what's best for Star Wars.
Oh, you're right. And when you're right, you're right. And you're always right.
And that Kathleen Kennedy and Jon Favreau, and yes, even the savior himself, Dave Filoni, could care less. Do we need any more proof of what's going on here? The people who are involved with making this show are telling you that something isn't quite right here. But if the fans say it, we're toxic. So Chapter 4 of the Book of Boba Fett is mostly focused on how Boba and Fennec came to be in a partnership. The episode starts off with Boba Fett trying to figure out how to get into Jabba's palace, with his goal being he wants to obtain his ship, Slave One.
You about to cross some fucking lines.
Guys.
The palace is of course heavily guarded, but like a miracle from the sky, Super Fennec drops right into his lap. He finds her unconscious body nearby, and he decides to take her to a modification clinic. And this is where we get a 90s techno montage of this dreadlocked technician, and this all happened in a Star Wars story.
A what?
I guess I missed the cyberpunk aesthetic in Return of the Jedi. This shit, like everything else in this show, felt completely out of place. And when she wakes up, Boba asks for her help in retrieving Slave One from Jabba's palace. There's also a line of dialogue here where he talks about how he is not as persuasive as he used to be without his armor. You got that shit right. It's almost like the show is mocking us at times in this very meta way, or maybe it's just that they are that tone deaf. I'm not sure which. Because they are literally stating the problems with this story in the dialogue.
What the hell am I looking at? When does this happen in the movie?
So she eventually agrees to help him, and Boba says goodbye to his pet Bantha. And this is where he reveals his whole motivation for this show, and presumably why he is nearly unrecognizable from a character standpoint. He, quote, wants to kill the bloated idiot that double-crossed him and take his throne. He claims that he is tired of working for idiots who are eventually going to get him killed, and that his time with the Tuskens changed his perspective on life. Fennec later retorts saying that his time with the Tuskens actually made him soft. It's hard to argue with that.
S-O-F-T, soft, huh?
And Boba argues that he is now stronger. It would be very easy to argue that, especially considering he gets his ass kicked quite frequently in this show. But I get it, he's emotionally stronger.
Why do these things always happen to me?
He goes on to talk about how many lives would be saved and how much money they could make if they just went out on their own. And he concludes this whole idea by saying you can only get so far without a tribe. So essentially they've turned what could have been a badass story about a loner bounty hunter into a story about belonging. Great, so Boba needing friends is now the motivation for this show. Riveting stuff here, folks. So they eventually do enter the palace, and they take out some droid cooks, and Boba spends a few minutes buffoonishly chasing a small droid around the kitchen, and when he eventually catches it, he holds the droid up and he says, "Do you know who I am? I'm Boba Fett." To which the droid responds by laughing at him and eventually shutting down. I don't know if anybody realizes this, but I believe that this droid is a physical representation of Lucasfilm. It might even be voiced by Kathleen Kennedy herself. Laughing at Boba Fett and then shutting down? It's a brilliant metaphor if you ask me.
You snotty little bastard.
So eventually they do obtain Slave 1 from Jabba's palace, thanks to Fennec basically defeating everyone and opening the gate for him. And this is where she agrees to stay with Boba on his journey for vengeance. I'm going to assume she did this because she knows that he can't do anything on his own. So they proceed to kill the biker gang that killed his tribe, so I guess that storyline is over. And then they go to the Sarlacc pit to try to obtain his armor. And then we get a special appearance from the George Lucas Special Edition version of the Sarlacc.
No shit.
And of course, Fennec is the one who destroys it, and then she informs Boba Fett that he should be thankful because his armor is what kept him alive inside the pit. Basically saying that it protected him from the digestive acids. I'm really glad that she's here to tell us these things. And then we see the big black Wookiee sitting around at a bar drinking and getting pissed off, kind of like me watching this show. And then he starts beating up people who are having a good time. So toxic, am I right?
I knew it. I'm surrounded by assholes.
After ripping someone's arm off, he is offered a job by Boba Fett, to which he accepts because I guess they see similarities in each other or some shit like that. This was just more nonsense about belonging. Finally, we have Fennec convincing Jabba's former captains to listen to Boba Fett's pleas, for them to stay neutral should the Syndicate approach them about forming an alliance. They all agree for now, but I smell a Mandalorian-like double cross coming very soon.
Whoa, whoa. Here I come. Oh, here I come. Oh.
Speaking of the Mandalorian theme plays when Fennec talks about hiring more muscle for the incoming war. So they were basically teasing a mediocre and awful show crossover that's sure to get the Easter egg obsessed crowd hype. I'm sorry, but this show sucks. They have completely dropped the ball with the Boba Fett character up until this point, and he is completely unrecognizable. And a half-assed story about him needing to belong is not going to justify it.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
The fact that these people thought that Boba Fett needed to be changed from his more mysterious role just tells me that they do not understand the character. I know that, the actor knows that, and diehard Star Wars fans know that. Why does every character need to be deconstructed in the modern era? Do you think that makes them more interesting? I would argue that it actually makes them less interesting. As much as I love the original version of the character of Boba Fett, I'm starting to think that some characters are just meant to be secondary characters and just be in the background.
That makes sense.
I didn't need further explanation of who Boba Fett is as a person. Especially not this sensitive, buffoonish version of the character. This show has been a complete failure up until this point, and that's why I'm going to give it the Angry Rocky.
That's right, it stinks!
So have you seen Chapter 4 of the Book of Boba Fett? I hope you haven't, but if you have, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below. As always, please like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell for notifications, and I'll see you next time right here on Real Shift. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Y'all be cool. Right on.